You are once again welcome to Evangelist Imakalo TV, Treasury of Excellent Knowledge. I am your serviceable servant, Evangelist Imakalo. This afternoon, I want to come up with the part 4 of prioritizing godliness. Part 4 of prioritizing godliness. Making godliness a priority, and in fact, the utmost priority in your life and of your life. The importance of doing so, what it means to do so, then the principles to doing so. There are several key factors for making godliness the utmost priority of personal life. I have made part 1, part 2, part 3. Today is part 4. And the Bible quotation is 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 6 from New American Standard Bible, NASB. New American Standard Bible. 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 6. He said, "And in your knowledge, self-control, and in your self-control, perseverance, and in your perseverance, godliness." The part 3 was about self-discipline. Now, I want to combine knowledge and perseverance as the sub-caption of this part 4 of prioritizing godliness. What is knowledge? Knowledge is awareness, being aware, to be conscious of something, consciousness, to have insight, or to be enlightened regarding anything at all. So anything we have information about, we are knowledgeable about that. But I am talking about godliness. There is the need for us to be knowledgeable about godliness. One of the reasons some people feel or desire to be godly, but they can never be godly, is nothing else but their ignorance of the principles of godliness. Even God said through his prophet Hosea that even his own people perish for their lack of knowledge. This is when Israelites began to neglect the knowledge of godliness. They began to neglect the knowledge of the Word of God, the knowledge of God's standard and principles in their relationship with Him. A lot of them began to be reprobates. So they began to prefer other means rather than God's means of relationship, of life, of success and prosperity. So they began to pull themselves away from God's absolute governance over their life, which is the perfect will of God concerning them and concerning all human beings. That is the case of the majority of human beings. The majority of human beings are wallowing in ignorance. So they do not have the knowledge of godliness, including the majority of the governments governing humanity all over the world. They are ignorant of godliness. So as a reason, even the government cannot really lead with godliness. That is the reason they always lead with socialism and some leading with occultism. Even some of the government officials who desire to live godly fail to do so, they keep on doing trials and error. Not because they want, it is because they cannot help themselves. And what is the secret that makes them unable to help themselves is their ignorance of godliness. So it is the will of God that we acquire the knowledge of godliness. The knowledge is the fundamental factor. Knowledge is the fundamental factor. It is compulsory for anyone who will perform well. No novice perform well in anything, in any field, beside godliness, in anything at all. Novice do not perform well. People must be knowledgeable. It is from the knowledgeable we can determine good performers, better performers, excellent performers, the best performers. But without knowledge, the novice cannot perform well. The majority of human beings are novice in terms of knowing how to observe godliness and knowing why godliness should be the top priority of each and every one of us. That is the reason Apostle Paul, exhorting Timothy, say, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman who needeth not to be ashamed, and who should rightly be dividing the word of God." God leading the Israelites through Moses in the wilderness after the handover of the governance from Moses to Joshua. God spoke to Joshua. He's speaking to him. Then he was referring to the entirety of Israelites who should be the model to reaching out to all generations of humanity in Joshua chapter 1. And that should be verse 8, between verse 7 to verse 9. He said, "This book of law should not depart at the book of law, the book of the law of God, the book of the law of godliness, should not depart out of your mouth. You shall meditate on it day and night. And by doing so, you should have good success. And by observing all that is written by it, you should have good success, and you shall prosper." So there is prosperity. God sets prosperity for observing godliness and for making godliness our utmost priority. So without knowledge of godliness, nobody can actually observe godliness accurately. That is the reason some people have rash zeal. They have the zeal to serve God sincerely, but they keep on erring just because they lack the proper knowledge that should guide them. The proper knowledge which should be their lamp and the light unto their feet, to guide them, to lighten their path, so that they would know the right way to follow, where to step on and where not to step on. But lack of knowledge means ignorance as stumbling block, and anybody who tries to observe godliness in ignorance is someone who is walking in a way he does not really know, and inside of darkness, in the thick darkness, without any light for the person to move faster and move accurately. So knowledge is important. The second part is perseverance. Perseverance is due endurance, thorough endurance, tolerance, the ability to endure. Last time I talked about self-discipline. So self-discipline also helps for someone to be perseverant. Someone who is not self-disciplined cannot really persevere. Perseverance is a key factor to endure hardship. Apostle Paul encourages Timothy, using him as a case example. He said, as a soldier of Christ, learn to endure hardship. Patience. Ruth is our Old Testament case example. She endured, she persevered when things were rough in her marriage, to the extent her husband had died. The husband who married her fellow countrywoman, Orpah by name, has also died, from the family of Elimelech and Naomi. At this point, Naomi had demanded that they should return to their home country, since they are widow, and she could not help them. Orpah went back to her country, Moab, but Ruth chose to persevere, to continue with that suffering, and it is because her spirit man or spirit woman had been enlightened for her to perceive, to visualize the goodness of the God of Israel. Knowing that even if she has nothing to gain, she has everything to gain in God. God was sufficient to her. As a reason, she decided to continue with that journey. And she began to rebuke her mother-in-law, Naomi, telling her to stop disturbing her, that she would go with her anywhere she would go, even into the land of Israel. And her people, the Israelites, should be her people, and her God, the God of Israel, should be her own God. And we see the end result of the both of this lady. Orpah went back into her idolatrous country, Moab, but Ruth continued into the land of godliness, which is Israel. And God blessed Ruth for enduring, for persevering. Without perseverance, a Christian, anybody at all, cannot go far in whatever they are doing. The inability to endure hardship, to tolerate some nonsense, because endurance goes along with humility. Some people's pride make them not to be able to humble themselves to endure some certain things which they are able to endure. Because anything God asks us to endure, He has given us the grace to endure it. But many people do not take advantage of their grace to endure. Ungodly impatience is the reason many people cannot stick to godliness, not to talk of making it a priority. A lot of people have been losing opportunities, have been disconnecting from their transaction or relationship to success. Most especially in our transaction with God, our relationship with God. Many people have dropped out, not just because of any other thing, but because of their own inability to endure and to persevere. They cannot endure hardship. Some people cannot endure lack. Some people cannot endure disrespect. Some people cannot endure endure the nonsense of others or any other people. Some people will always find fault in the church, how things are going wrong, but their own impatience will make them to pull away from the church rather than for them to stay and begin to make correction and try to take the lead of doing the right things, while others begin to see them as models for doing the right thing, and they will begin to win audience right inside the church, even when they have not established any of their denominational institution. So without patience, without endurance, our relationship with God cannot go far. It is not that God is weak, but because most human beings are weak. So perseverance is very, very important. Knowledge is very, very important. So they are fundamental factors to guiding us, to helping us into continuity of our godliness and truly making our godliness our priority. May God bless you. I remain your service servant, evangelist Inyuma Carlo. Remember to visit your Google, go to Amazon through Google or whichever means. Go to my books, buy my books, be reading them, be acquiring knowledge from them, and you'll be growing rapidly, knowledge-wise, moral-wise, and spiritual-wise. So this is the calling. God has called me to be educating humanity from all around the world. Polygamy and its problem is available in Amazon. Lust and their problems is available in Amazon. The Olivet Prophecy, Matthew 24, it is available. And by the grace of God, before this month rounds up, Understanding and Executing Righteousness will also be available. And I believe there is a new book I am formatting. This is the sample of it. Piano and guitar notes, praise and worship songs. So this is about learning how to play the sofas for outrightly for beginners. Then some people who already play but have not become professional, beginners and amateur outrightly. Then professionals can use it to improve their own notes, because there are some notes I may play in a particular song that even another professional may not know. Then from here you will know some of the notes according to my own style of play. Also, the professionals can be using these books for teaching the amateur and the outright beginners. May God bless you until I come your way once again and the program has just come to an end.